Today, Todd Parsons will be our presenter. Todd is an Intacct Solutions Architect. He has been with RKL for almost 2 years and has been working with Sage software for over 5. Before coming to RKL, Todd was a controller, and he has a specialty in financial processes. Also, don't forget your RKL account rep is Lisa Gillette, so please don't hesitate to contact her should you have any solutions regarding your Sage software. So without delay, let's get started.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get started in this. On today's year-end planning for Sage Intacct, we're going to cover things that you don't have to do, which is always good, year-end preparation, fiscal year-end close process, create fiscal year reporting periods, probably the subject of everybody's questions on the call, 1099 preparation and processing, since the IRS was nice enough to make some changes for us this year. We're going to go over some frequently asked questions. And again, please don't hesitate at any time to reach out with any questions that you have during, and we'll try to get them answered as soon as we can. So first part is, and this is something that people newer to Intacct absolutely love, and that's things that you don't have to do anymore. So things you no longer have to worry about with Sage Intacct are you do not have to back up data. I remember my days in Sage 100 and we had, I think, 8 different entities in the company I was with. So every one of those had to be backed up manually. There is no more of that. Worry about your disaster recovery plan. That's already taken care of by Sage Intacct, being a cloud-based software. You no longer have to purge history or lose access to detailed transactions. Again, being online on the cloud, they handle all of your data, and they don't have a history purging piece as a lot of other softwares do. So you always have your history at your fingertips there. You don't have to install service updates or patches. Again, with Sage Intacct, those are done on a quarterly basis. And as you probably well know, Q4 update has just come out the other week. And you don't have to do any year-end document preparation. You don't have to complete an official roll forward or for your retained earnings. That happens seamlessly behind the scenes. For year-end public preparation, you do need to close, or it's best practice to close your subledgers, meaning your AP, AR, PO, order entry, etc. You can close all entities at once or one entity at a time, or if you have them set up in groups, you can do it through there. The best practice as always is to close monthly or quarterly and close as you go, rather than just closing at the end of the year. For those of you newer to this, in order to close a subledger, in this example on the screen here, we have the accounts payable module. And we go over here to where it says subledger and close. And then you can click your entity or group and choose the period which you want to close, whether it be the month end, quarterly end, or in this case here, year end. Before you do the close, you're going to want to reconcile your subledgers to your control accounts. Okay, for reconciliation purposes, run the subledger reports by GL posting date. So your vendor aging report and your customer aging report, you want to make sure that you select a date here to run as, use 12/31/2020 and the GL posting date. And you want to validate that your total balance there matches what your AP or AR accounts show in your general ledger report. If they're not in balance, look for manual journal ledger entries that were created in those subledger accounts. Also look at cutoff dates, or you can contact RKL for additional assistance. Okay. A lot of the times we have your control account set to disallow direct posting, which is on this slide right here. And if you don't have that, you may want to consider adding that to your control accounts. Select disallow direct posting to prevent direct entry of journal entries to the subledger control account. Use this control to ensure that account balance for the subledger account is accurate and has the necessary ledger details supporting the figure. rather than a direct entry, which would not be reflected in the subledger area. The best practice is to turn this on for all control accounts and retain earnings. Once you close your control account or subledgers, you want to close your general ledger, and the closing of periods is super easy. You do not have to close your subledgers individually. You can close everything through the general ledger. Again, not as we recommend. We recommend closing each one of those on a monthly basis. It's easy as closing and opening periods. Just go to general ledger, all, books, and then you want to hit close. And again, you'll see the entity or group and then close for the period. In this particular case, we're talking about year end 2020. But you could, if you're doing it on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, choose those periods as well. The next thing you want to do is create your fiscal year reporting periods. Create new reporting periods. This is done typically once a year, but you can do it in advance. And to do this, you would go to company, setup, import data. Okay. And if for some reason you wouldn't have that, that may be a permissions related issue. Just check with one of your system administrators to validate that you have that permission. Scroll down to the general ledger transactions here, and then find the reporting periods here. And then you want to select default. Now, I just want to kind of caution that default and import are two separate buttons here to click. I know myself, I tend to hit import all the time because that's usually what we're doing. But the default is a separate button here to click. So you want to click default, and then that will create 2 years worth of reporting for you. Once you click that button and you get the okay that it rolled forward, I would suggest that you come in here and validate that they're there. So navigate to reporting periods by going to reports, setup, and then reporting periods. And here's where you can review and confirm that the reporting periods are set up. And we'll see here that we have 2021 now in here. Again, I mentioned earlier that you can choose calendar year ends, you can choose month ends, you can do quarter ends. Those are the different ways you can close your books. And also the same for how you can run your reports. Year-end close things to remember. Make a year-end and month-end checklist. Checklists can be very, very beneficial for you. It'll help enable you to know what it needs to be done when. It also kind of gives you that ability to say, where am I at in the close process? Oh, I'm here. I can just kind of check this off and move on to the next one. You want to develop and document a close process. And that close process will vary from company to company. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have like a generic one that we send out to you. Define tasks and responsibilities to team members. That way everybody knows who's responsible for what so that nothing falls through the cracks. Set due dates. And of course, we definitely want to assign responsibilities. We don't want to take on everything to do ourselves. Okay. You want to lock down retained earnings. You never want to do adjustments to retained earnings, only system created journal entries. Okay. So at the end of the year, everything will close to retain earnings. When you run reports, you'll see that period to date close to retain earnings. We don't want to do anything manual to retain earnings. That will happen system generated. There's no need to touch retain earnings or perform an official close process, but you do want to reconcile your subledgers. And again, this is kind of where things tend to get out of balance from time to time. If you can't figure it out, most of the time somebody posted something to direct earnings that they shouldn't have, or I'm sorry, to retain earnings that they shouldn't have. But if it's something you can't figure out, again, RKO is here to help. We are always here to help. 1099 processing. The tax forms are now available. You can get the 1099 forms through Sage formsforintact.com. And then just to let you know, everything, those forms are updated. I was on the call with somebody about 2 weeks ago, and they went in there, and when they clicked on the preview now to see the forms, it still had the 2019 forms. The new forms are updated. I called them and talked to them about that and made sure that that was handled. And I went on the website yesterday and validated that they had updated that. So if you are going to print the forms out yourself, this is the website you would want to go to get those forms. You can also go to the home page. Under resources, checks and supplies, that's a hyperlink that'll take you there as well. $1099 preparation and processing. As far as for the vendor setup, if you don't have your vendors set up for 1099s yet, you want to go into accounts payable and setup and vendors. And then when you edit the vendor, the additional information tab, tag them as 1099 eligible. And then when you go to save it, it will bring up a box and allow you to pick the proper form and the proper box for that form. If they have a separate name that they use for their 1099, you can put that in here. And what'll print out will be the 1099 name in conjunction with the vendor name as well. If you are a new customer and you have initial values because you did a mid-year go live, you would enter the year-to-date balances from your old system found in the initial values for year drop-down list. Then enter the starting year-to-date balances in those fields. Future amounts you pay to the vendor through Sage Intacct are added to the amounts, if any, you enter here. Okay, I've read through that a few times. I kind of break it down here. When you click save on the 1099 vendor and you choose the box here, 1099 NEC form, and you choose the box 1, and you choose the box 1, any values that you had for 2020 before you came into Intacct, you would put right in here, those values. Anything that you did in Intacct will automatically add to those at the end, okay? Again, tip, remember, only enter the calendar year-to-date 1099 balance for each vendor, okay, from your old system. Okay. 1099 preparation and processing, 1099 printing. In order to print your 1099s, go to the accounts payable. Under all, the third column over, which is where all your reports are, you'll see a 1096, 1099. And then when you click on there, you'll have the options here to pick the 1096 form, 1099 form, report, or create a file if you're going to send that to a third-party system. When printing the 1099s, you have the ability to exclude credit card transactions here, and that's under accounts payable, reports, 1099 or 1096, 1099, the 1099 form, exclude credit card payments. Those credit card payments are payments that happen through your credit card journal. If you just put the credit card information in the memo field, I've seen a couple people do that and they want to know why it's not excluding them. It's actually not going to if it's just in the memo field. It has to actually be done as a credit card transaction. Okay. The 1099 create file screen enables you to create a data file that you can send to a third-party service that specializes in printing and mailing 1099 forms. These services also file the required information with the Internal Revenue Service. You can export the file offline in either CSV or Excel format, or you can export the data online in one of the following file formats: CSV, Excel, XML, or XSD, depending on what your third party would like. So when you're in that screen of the 1099 create file, it'll allow you to process offline, or you can do it online. If you have a lot of 1099 vendors and 1099 forms, you won't be able to do anything else while that's running if you do it online. That's why the ability to do it to run that export offline is there. It'll just process it and store it so you can go back and get it later when it's done. Okay. I heard a comment that my audio is breaking apart. So I've made a change to that. So let me know if it gets any better. Okay. So 1099 preparation and processing frequently asked questions. What if we have a third-party print and email forms? You would create the 1099 file, then export the data. If you want to see the amounts paid to the vendors along with their 1099 categories, run the 1099 report to show all the 1099 data. Okay. And for those of you who had the 1099 migration from the miscellaneous box 7 to NEC box 1, if there were any 1099s that are invoices that were created prior to 2020 and we had to do a reconciliation for that, you would need to click detail and run that report by entity to see everything correctly. Okay. If we have 250 or more 1099s, it was required that you file electronically. There are third-party programs that will help you file electronically. These can be found at Intacct Marketplace. The website's there. Right now, when I ran that this morning, there were 2 different providers in there that you could choose from. What tax forms does Sage Intacct support? It supports the following tax forms: the 96, the 1099 NEC, 1099 miscellaneous, the DIV, INT, R, S, PATR, and G, and the W2G as well. How do I update or change the 1099 amount for a vendor? You can manually update a vendor's amount by going into accounts payable, editing the appropriate vendor, the additional information tab, click on the 1099 link, select the proper 1099 year, and consequently, because I've seen a couple people do this, a lot of the times 2020 is good too. 2000 is going to show up in the top, and it looks very quick, very similar to 2020 if you look at it real quick. So just make sure you scroll down to 2020 when you pick the year for that. I've seen a few people make that mistake. Select the appropriate 1099 form for this vendor and enter the amounts you want to add to the vendor's current balance and save the change. If for some reason you need to reduce the amount that's showing up on the report, you can enter a negative number in there to get that reconciled to where it needs to be. Year-end resources. You can always reach out to RKL support. You can do the Sage Intacct online help. And I'm sure every one of you remembers your implementation and how we raved about how great the help menus are. Those are definitely your friends and you want to use those. You also have the ability to select Sage Intacct Community. Hopefully you've all registered for community accounts. They are free for all users. If you have not, you can reach out to us, because when you click on community to create an account, it's going to ask you for your client ID, and that's not a readily available number. So you feel free to reach out to us and we can get you that information. For our support, you would email support@rklesolutions.com. and you should be familiar with where the help menu is at the top right-hand corner of Intacct. Just make sure you're looking at either help on this page or help in general. You could use either one. And there's the community website, or again, you can click down here on community. And that is my part of the presentation.
So we wanted to share with you guys the Sage Intacct Budgeting and Planning virtual series. This will be a weekly Wednesday wisdom series covering Intacct budgeting planning topics. The series will explore how you can further drive efficiency and success within your business. The Sage Intacct product experts will share best practices, tips, and tricks, and other ways Sage Intacct innovation can help you with your Sage Intacct investment. But what's great right now is they are currently running a 50% off any new SIBP purchase. And what makes this even more attractive is that it's in perpetuity, but you must be purchased by December 31. So if you have any questions regarding Sage Intacct budgeting and planning, and if that would be a good fit for you, please contact your CAM, Lisa Gillette, for more questions. Also, Sage is offering a series of virtual meetup sessions for Sage Intacct clients where you can learn from other Intacct customers and share experiences and best practices. They will also be sharing some roadmap updates and product enhancements. So we will be publishing these dates in the upcoming year-end newsletter, which will come out later this week or early next week. So look for that information on both of those there. We will also send out with the replay of the slides, which the links on this slide for the budget and planning virtual series are live, so you can click on those links to register. Next slide. So thank you for joining us today, and please don't forget to contact us should you have any questions. And Lisa Gillette is your account manager. She loves talking to all of you, so call her should you need anything. Thank you so much, Todd, for a great presentation. Does anyone have any questions at this time? If we need to make adjustments, should we reopen or use adjustments?
If we need to make adjustments, where?
Audit adjustments.
It is best practice to use the adjustments feature in there to make those adjustments. You can do it the other way, but again, it gives you kind of a snaps a picture of this came from the audit adjusters.
Okay, are there any other questions? And Tracy says, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that is all we have. All right, thank you guys so much. Happy holidays and have a great close of your year.